The anime begins with a flashback of young Zeno and Stanley Snyder. Zeno was working on a railgun when Stanley used the same to showcase his impressive sniper skills. When Stanley asked Zeno the reason behind his work, the scientist revealed that the relentless pursuit of new discoveries is the joy of science. As revealed by the anime, the flashback was part of Zeno's dream that he saw just before waking up in the Kingdom of Science's boat. Right after, Senku Ishigami discussed his plan with his friends. Senku wanted to triangulate the location where the Peter beam originated. That is why they were headed to South America. This is when Dr. Zeno revealed that he too suspected the moon dwellers as the culprits behind the Petri beam. With this development, Zeno and Senku found a common ground in wanting to approach the secrets behind the Petri beam and the moon. Hence, they immediately teamed up with each other and began exchanging information. Elsewhere, Stanley Snyder and his men were preparing to go after Senku Ishigami and others. During this time, Yuzuriha and others were being sent to the American team's base. Meanwhile, Matsukaze pretended to be injured so that he could infiltrate Snyder's ship and look for the missing Ginro. Soon after Matsukaze located Ginro, Snyder arrived to question him about Senku's destination. During this, he pretended to kill Matsukaze, only for Ginro to reveal Senku and the team's destination in a desperate attempt to save his friend. Around the same time, Senku revealed to Zeno how Byakuya Ishigami had conveyed to him that the origin of the Petri beam was somewhere in South America. Using this information as their base, Senku and Zeno began engaging their minds and all the data to try and locate the origin point. Wanting to join the two scientists, Chrome used the first opportunity he got to enter the room. To his surprise, Senku and Zeno were blowing large bubbles. As explained by the two scientists, they were essentially trying to learn the Petri beam's movements by using the bubbles on a globe. Soon after, with some help from Chrome, they quantified all the information they had to create two axes based on their locations when they were petrified, to provide them with an approximate location for the Petri beam. Senku Ishigami was planning how they intended to reach their destination. As they could not walk all the way, Senku suggested that they sail around South America to get a location far closer to their destination. Unfortunately, this plan had a major flaw, which was the lack of fuel. Hence, the Kingdom of Science had to make several stops to chop down trees. During their first night of chopping trees, Taiju and Suika happened to notice a huge hell sign floating in the air. Both of them immediately reported to Senku and others about the possibility of a message from Y-Man. While Senku and others were indeed shocked, upon closer inspection, they realized that the words weren't floating in the sky, but were the result of luminous paint. The next day, the Kingdom of Science followed the sign to find an odd person who happened to have bad eyesight, just like Suika. Hence, Senku again commissioned Kaseki to make a pair of glasses. Soon enough, Dr. Zeno identified the person as Dr. Chelsea, a prominent geographer. Dr. Chelsea had seemingly broken out of the petrification only a year ago. Unfortunately, while Zeno had laid out signs for people to reach him, her poor eyesight betrayed her, causing her to stray further away. As for Senku, given the sudden appearance of a geographer amongst them, he decided to take her input on how they could reach their destination. According to Chelsea, the only way was through the mountains and rivers. However, they would need some form of off-road vehicle for the same. This development saw Senku decide that they needed to make bikes to travel in South America. Soon after, Kaseki began working on the same. While Chelsea was surprised by what the Kingdom of Science was capable of, Isagiri Gen gave her a summary of their mission. Upon hearing what was going on, she immediately declared Zeno the bad person and joined the Kingdom of Science. Soon after, Senku tried to use Chelsea's vast knowledge to learn where they could find rubber. While Chelsea could certainly lead the Kingdom of Science to its location, Zeno reminded them that they had a bigger problem on their hands, as Stanley Snyder was tailing them to rescue him. Just then, Ukyo realized that Zeno wasn't wrong, as Stanley's aircraft carrier had reached close enough for their radio waves to reach the Kingdom of Science's ship. This meant that the American team could reach the Kingdom of Science by night. Amidst this, the Kingdom of Science uses the fabric from Chelsea's SOS sign to create a big sail, essentially turning the boat into a racing sailboat. With that, Senku's team maintained a similar speed to Stanley's team, keeping them away from each other. Dr. Chelsea proposed to Senku and the others that they consider traveling to their destination via the Panama Canal. However, since it had been thousands of years since humanity had last maintained it, there was a strong possibility that the canal had become overgrown or covered up. That's when Ukyo came up with the plan to use the American team's radar operator's skill against them. In the hope of getting Stanley Snyder away from them, Senku and others deployed their lab car unmanned toward the Panama Canal. This development forced Stanley to chase after the lab car as if it weren't a decoy. The American team would lose track of the Kingdom of Science. In the meantime, the Kingdom of Science set off to a nearby land to cultivate sap from rubber trees. Soon after they acquired the sap, they produced rubber and set forth again for South America. During this journey, Taiju was tasked with the heavy-duty work of turning the rubber into sheets, which Senku later turned into tires. Soon after the Kingdom of Science entered South America, they began ripping apart their boat to use the materials to make bikes. Senku planned on making 6 bikes, 1 boss bike and 5 mini bikes. The boss bike would be tasked with turning wood into fuel for the other 5 bikes. Elsewhere, after Stanley Snyder realized that the lab car headed to the Panama Canal was a decoy, he headed to Ecuador, where Senku and others were. However, the moment they were about to make landfall, the Kingdom of Science deployed its newly created bikes and began traveling across South America. In response, the American team attacked the Kingdom of Science with their guns. However, the Science team managed to evade them. Amidst this, the American team also deployed its aircraft. Unbeknownst to them, Senku had already tampered with it. Hence, the aircraft came crashing down. While Senku and others indeed escaped, Dr. Zeno managed to give Stanley a message through Morse code. The American colony is repairing Stanley's aircraft. Meanwhile, Senku has assigned Nikki and others in Corn City the important task of understanding how the Medusa works. Soon after, Homura retrieved the Medusa from the bottom of the river. As expected, Brody was suspicious of the science team. Hence, he made it clear to them that they could only work on the Medusa under the American colony's supervision. While Nikki and others were having a tough time, they deduced that only a high-end watch or jewelry maker could disassemble the Medusa without damaging it. In response, Ryusui Nanami suggested that Nikki and others locate the nearest Rodex headquarters. Unfortunately, with only Ryusui knowing the location, the science team had to draw a map and relay it to the Corn City team through a manual fax mission. As expected, transmitting this information took hours. Fortunately, Yuzuriha managed to draw up a brilliant map, allowing her team to locate the Rodex CEO. Just as they revived the CEO and spoke to her about their situation, she suggested they revive Joel, their ace watchmaker. With that, Joel joined the Corn City team and started working on the Medusa. While he was shocked to see the technology used to build the device, after hours of focus, Joel found out that the device's core was its diamond, which could be used a bit over its limit by reattaching it like any battery-operated device. While the diamond eventually ran out of juice, Joel was certain he could make the device work again. Elsewhere, the Kingdom of Science was taking its final break before scaling the Andes Mountains. With Stanley pursuing them, they needed to scale the mountains as soon as possible and reach the Amazon rainforest. While the team was worried about the rainforest condition, Chelsea was confident that the rainforest was intact. Soon after, Chelsea asked Luna her weight. As they needed to climb mountains, they needed to balance their weight amongst all the bikes. Just as Luna heard this, she suggested that she could sit with Senku. While Chelsea suspected that Luna liked Senku, Luna believed that she was already dating him. As expected, Luna was totally wrong. The anime later saw Senku create a weighing machine, allowing them to calculate and distribute their weight properly amongst all bikes equally. With that, the science team began scaling the mountains the next day. Just as the team started finding it difficult to climb, Senku suggested that they build a ropeway. Elsewhere, Stanley Snyder got on his aircraft to pursue them. Kohaku jumps from one mountain to another, scaling the long distance with a single leap. This development allowed them to tie a rope on the other side and create a ropeway using a cable. Although the ropeway was ready, a problem arose. The ropeway had a weight limit of 160 kilograms, and the only person who could tag along with Dr. Zeno was Hyoga. While the Kingdom of Science had gone through a lot with Hyoga, they were afraid to trust him. With that, they were stuck in a cross-the-river puzzle. Nevertheless, they had to allow the two to cross together. Moments later, Suika fell off the ropeway due to a gust of wind, only for Kohaku to save her. At that moment, everyone feared that Hyoga would betray them. But to their surprise, he helped Kohaku, strengthening their bond as a team. Moments later, the Kingdom of Science finally crossed the Andes Mountains to reach the Amazon forest. With that, the team was finally safe from Stanley Snyder. However, they had another problem at hand: the dangerous insects and creatures of the Amazon forest. Surprisingly, the most dangerous amongst them wasn't any huge mammal, but the army ant. Senku and Chelsea later caught some of the army ants to create an insect repellent. After the long bike ride, it was time for the Kingdom of Science's final sprint towards the epicenter of the ancient petrification device. As part of this, they created a water slide and traveled to their destination through the river. In total, it took the Kingdom of Science about 4 months to travel from Japan to the epicenter of the petrification event. With that, they hoped they finally had some answers to the 3,000-year-old incident. To their fortune, the Kingdom of Science indeed found the epicenter of the petrification incident. However, it was far different from what they imagined. While they thought they could expect a device or two, they instead found a pyramid of Medusa devices, which, as described by Kohaku, looked sickening yet beautiful. Senku and team tests out the Medusa devices. When they realized that the batteries of all devices were down, they were sad. However, Senku and Tsukasa saw the bright side, as they could now break as many devices as needed to research their composition. Soon after, the Kingdom of Science started building a ship to get away. However, unlike their ship from before, they were designing a pointy ship to make it stealthy. Unfortunately, their first test did not work so well, as the ship was still detectable through sonar. That's when Chrome had a doubt. If sonar could detect a large object through radio waves, why didn't 21st century people detect the large number of Medusa devices that had rained down from the sky? This question helped Senku and Zeno realize that the Medusa's shape was undetectable through radio waves. Hence, the team decided to cover their stealth ship with the abundant Medusa available at their disposal. With this move, the Kingdom of Science created its first stealth ship. Soon after the team set out on their way on the new ship, Senku and Zeno joined hands to research the Medusa devices by taking them apart. In time, they realized that only the Medusa with charred diamonds were the ones that had been used. As for the remaining Medusa devices, their diamonds had some damage, leaving them unused. This effectively meant that if the Kingdom of Science could get their hands on a good diamond, the team could use one of the unused Medusa devices. Hence, Senku immediately contacted the Corn City team and instructed them on how they could create a diamond. While they weren't confident about doing science work, Senku assured them that science wasn't just for geniuses, but for everyone. No matter who did the task, the outcome would be the same. As such, the team worked on the mission for a few days and succeeded in creating diamond crystals. Senku confirmed that the Corn City team had indeed succeeded in creating diamonds. However, as the diamonds were too small, they needed to search for natural diamonds and use the synthetic ones to create sandpaper and polish the natural diamonds into batteries for the Medusa devices. Soon after, the Corn City team went to the location pointed out by Dr. Chelsea and procured the natural diamonds. While Joel was confident that he would be able to create the batteries, Senku had one last thing to say to the Corn City team. Considering the chance of giving away their location due to radio waves, this would be the last time the expedition team would speak with the Corn City team. As for their next destination, Senku and others decided to head to Araxa due to its abundance of minerals. During this, Senku realized how Dr. Zeno had interrupted his call with the Corn City team. The scene then switched to Stanley Snyder, as he revealed how Dr. Zeno had told him about the youth science team's final destination using Morse code when they first reached South America. Thus, soon after the American team detected Dr. Zeno's interruptions in the call between the expedition team and Corn City team, Stanley asked his men to turn the ship towards Araxa. As for the Kingdom of Science, soon after they reached Araxa, they began mining for minerals and preparing the superalloy city for their final battle against Stanley Snyder. This is when Senku revealed to his friends that Dr. Zeno had already contacted Stanley and asked him to come to Araxa. While the development may seem too risky, Senku was already planning on it, as he intended to steal Perseus from the American team to travel across the Atlantic Ocean. However, as for their battle against Stanley's team, considering that Hyoga and Tsukasa were injured, they only had a few people, like Kohaku, Ukyo, and Max, who could fight them. With that, the only option was to rely on the Medusa devices. Amidst all this, Kaseki continued working on the Medusa devices from his end. However, as they were too weak, they kept coming apart. Around the same time, Ukyo and others were planning how they could use the Medusa devices. While they could use Ukyo's bow and arrow to launch the Medusa devices towards Stanley and others, there was also a huge risk of getting killed before that. Hence, after Taiju suggested he would make a suicide charge towards Stanley's team, Chrome formulated another idea. Chrome suggested that they have one of their team members wait far away from the superalloy city. Meanwhile, they could use the Medusa device to petrify both the Kingdom of Science and the American team. Soon after, the person stationed outside the perimeter could come revive their teammates. Soon after, the team switched its focus back to the diamond. Kaseki had finally managed to take apart the Medusa device cleanly. However, just like Joel, he too wasn't making progress in shaping the diamonds the way they needed as batteries for the Medusa devices. That's when Kaseki suddenly realized that while the diamonds he polished were indestructible, the ones placed inside the Medusa devices were susceptible to breaking. Upon further investigation, he realized that the diamonds in the Medusa devices had a cleavage point with a weak atomic bond. Hence, Kaseki started working towards creating similar diamonds. Senku and team assigned Suika and Francois as the Kingdom of Science members to stay away from the Medusa fort for their petrification plan. However, just as the two started traveling away from their base, they spotted Stanley Snyder and his team. While Suika and Francois planned to stay silent, Charlotte Boney from the American colony got bitten by a poisonous spider. Hence, despite the risk, Suika chose to help Charlotte. Unfortunately, this development saw the American colony soldiers surround Suika. While Francois wished to save her, she was certain she would get shot down immediately. Hence, she threw her kitchen knife at Matsukaze to help him get free and help them. However, given the circumstances, Matsukaze freed Ginro instead. While Ginro was scared to face off against the American colony, he took down a few of them, only for him to be recaptured by Stanley. This development helped Francois realize that Stanley and his team weren't ruthless murderers, but soldiers who made sure not to harm civilians and hostages. Hence, Francois came forward and labeled herself and Suika as non-combatants to give medical attention to the injured. Given that Suika had indeed rescued Charlotte, Stanley decided not to shoot them. Instead, he added them to his hostages. It was only later revealed that Francois had sent out a radio message, giving Senku and others Stanley's location. Just as Senku and others deciphered the message, Kohaku rushed to the forest to rescue Suika and others. Soon after, Tsukasa and Hyoga joined her. Given the circumstances, the one thing Kohaku, Tsukasa, and Hyoga planned on doing was to destroy Stanley's communications. If they succeeded in that, the Kingdom of Science could easily use Zeno to blackmail Stanley into surrendering. Hence, the moment Maya spotted the three, they headed straight into the battle. While Tsukasa managed to knock down Maya, he was shot down by members of the American colony. In the meantime, Stanley confronted Kohaku, but was shielded by Hyoga. Lastly, despite everything she witnessed happening around her, Kohaku forced her way amongst the American colony soldiers and destroyed their communication device. Soon after, even Kohaku was shot by Stanley. The anime later revealed that while Tsukasa and Kohaku were at the brink of death, Hyoga had perished. Just before Tsukasa lost consciousness, he thought of how they could be saved using the petrification device. With Hyoga gone, Tsukasa unconscious and Kohaku barely alive, she believes Senku and the others will defeat Stanley's team. Taiju and the others are testing their loudspeaker to activate the Medusa device, but they still need a battery. Despite Kaseki and Chrome's efforts, they're struggling to create it. Maya Biggs questions whether to advance or wait for their communication device. But Stanley insists they push forward while the Kingdom of Science's strongest warriors are down. With that, Stanley's team marches forward to the Kingdom of Science's base. Senku assigned Luna and Chelsea as the revival crew since their original team was captured. They had to let Luna and Chelsea move far from the base with a revival kit. As they left, Chelsea cried, while Ukyo watched over the base and spotted Stanley's team with hostages, but not Kohaku, Tsukasa, or Hyoga, leading him to believe they were dead. Chelsea expressed their concern that the Kingdom of Science couldn't create a working petrification device in time and lacked strong fighters against Stanley's team. Realizing the truth, Luna ran back to the base, but it was too late. Stanley's team has attacked the Kingdom of Science base with grenades. While Taiju fights back by throwing grenades, Gin panics and tries to wake him after Taiju collapses. Dr. Zeno, reveling in his apparent victory, urges Ryusui to surrender, claiming they can't stop Stanley. However, Ryusui refuses to give up, believing in Senku and the Kingdom of Science's ability to ultimately revive everyone. Ryusui is shot by Stanley's team, shocking Gin, while Senku and others narrowly dodge explosions. Luna can only watch from afar. Gin tries to surrender but fails. Stanley orders his team to kill everyone except Dr. Zeno. A grenade detonates in their workshop, incinerating all the diamonds. Kaseki, devastated by the loss of his work, is uplifted by Chrome's motivation. Suddenly, the phone rings. It's ace watchmaker Joel in Corn City, announcing that he has finally succeeded in making a battery for the Medusa device. It was all thanks to Kaseki's research. During Francois's capture, she transmitted a vital code to Joel, but it was also intercepted by Brody Dudley in the American colony, who took necessary action against Kingdom Science. Kaseki feels relieved that his life's work is not wasted. During Joel's celebration, Brody Dudley breaks in, steals the Medusa device, and destroys all communication tools, isolating Joel from Senku and the others. The American colony captures the remaining members of the Kingdom of Science in Corn City. Believing the Medusa device is too dangerous for them, Brody hides it in a secret box. Meanwhile, Senku deduces that Stanley's reckless behavior stems from losing contact with their base, giving the Kingdom of Science an advantage. Senku then tries to reach Joel, and Minami Hokusai translates his plans for those captured. The plan is to use the Medusa device to petrify both North and South America simultaneously. The Kingdom of Science, excited by this prospect, marches to retake the American team. Joel is also determined that he can't give up until he meets Kaseki and celebrates his victory. The Kingdom of Science quickly defeats the American soldiers and reaches Brody Dudley to capture the Medusa device, risking their lives. However, everyone is shot except Joel, who hides and makes a last-ditch effort to seize the device. Unfortunately, Brody Dudley traps his hand in the box. Just when the Americans think they've won, Joel's watch transmits a signal from Senku, who activates the Medusa device with a voice command to petrify 12,800,000 meters. As the petrification device was activated, only a few minutes remained before the petrification beam reached Senku and Stanley's team. In the meantime, Senku and his allies were trying to figure out a way to revive themselves after being petrified. Suddenly, a bullet struck Senku, causing him to collapse. While the others were distracted by the petrification beam, Ukyo Sayonji seized this opportunity to free the captured members of the Kingdom of Science. They all made a final effort to obtain the revival fluid, but unfortunately, Dr. Zeno and Stanley arrived and shot them, snatching the revival fluid away. Meanwhile, Luna and Chelsea are terrified of being turned to stone. They throw a bottle of revival fluid at the petrification beam in an attempt to stop it, but unfortunately, their efforts are in vain and they become petrified. Meanwhile, Dr. Zeno and the others are celebrating their success and strategizing a countermeasure against the petrification. Just then, Maya Biggs notices that the revival fluid is missing and speculates that Suika has taken it with her, prompting them to chase after her. As Suika approached the Kingdom of Science base, Stanley's team began shooting at her. Fortunately, none of the bullets hit, but all the revival fluid she was carrying was lost except for one vial. She managed to throw this vial to Chrome and Jin, who placed it in the sound receptacle of the Medusa Tower. At that moment, Dr. Zeno realized that Senku and the others were planning to use the sounds of nature to revive the Kingdom of Science. Stanley attempted to grab the revival fluid, but was stopped by Chrome and the others. Senku then asked Suika to go inside the Medusa Tower, as she would be the one to revive everyone. Stanley and Dr. Zeno realize what Senku is planning, and they decide to give up, leading to their own petrification. Not only are they petrified, but so are the inhabitants of Ishigami Village, the Petrification Kingdom, and every human civilization on the planet, except for wildlife. As days turn into months and eventually years, while all humans remain petrified, nature begins to reclaim the man-made structures. As Senku had anticipated, the sounds of wild animals and thunder shatter the revival fluid that flowed through Suika, reviving her as the only human left standing. Suika is thrilled about her revival and is eager to bring everyone back, but she soon realizes that she can't find the revival fluid without her spectacles. After finally locating her glasses, she searches for the revival fluid but finds none. As hunger sets in, she discovers an old stock of food kits they had prepared before being petrified. Suika eats the food but understands that she will soon starve once the leftovers are gone, which makes her cry. However, she quickly calms down and remembers that Senku also survived alone and revived many people. Determined, she vows not to give up until she revives everyone. A few days later, she manages to acquire food, clothing, and shelter. Suika gathers the petrified members of the Kingdom of Science team to revive them with revival fluid. While searching, she encounters a member of Stanley's team and, feeling fear, realizes they are also petrified and can't harm her. She then finds Matsukaze, Francois, and Jinro in their petrified forms. Suika drags the petrified Jinro to her place, accidentally breaking his arm. Realizing Senku must have glue, she searches his satchel, but it doesn't work. She uses rope to temporarily fix the arm and then heads back to get Kohaku and the others, but they are too heavy for her to carry alone. Suika wishes she had a bike to easily transport the petrified Kohaku and others. Remembering the bike's spare parts hidden underground by Senku, she quickly builds a cart to carry them. The next day, she makes a fish trap, cooks the fish, and stores the leftovers in her tire bag for later. Suika couldn't find Luna and Chelsea, so she assumed they went the opposite way. After several days of searching, she discovered they were in the mountains. Upon finding them and searching their bags for revival fluid, she was disappointed to find none, but she did discover a map that Chelsea had made. Suika feels disheartened as her search for revival fluid fails, but she remains determined to revive everyone. She brings Luna and Chelsea to her home, gathering the entire petrified kingdom of science. When hunger strikes, she remembers the fruit-marked locations on Chelsea's map and sets off to gather them. Upon returning, she converses with the petrified kingdom of science in her mind. She discovers a paper in Senku's satchel containing a manual for revival fluid. Excited, she vows to create her own and writes the equation from Senku's dress in her blood. The next day, Suika follows her routine of catching fish and preparing food while learning new recipes. She reads the manual and feels proud of her reading skills, even if she doesn't grasp everything. Eventually, she discovers that nitric acid is needed for revival fluid and opts for the easiest method to make it. Excited, she believes that if she follows Senku's instructions, she will successfully create the revival fluid. Suika follows the instruction manual carefully but fails miserably. She knows Senku and the others would have succeeded easily. Desperate, she considers a method she dislikes, which requires animal poop. After collecting some, she realizes it's not enough and feels hopeless. Just then, she sees birds flying away and checks Chelsea's map, discovering they gather at Waterfowl Island. Suika arrives at the island, only to find it covered in bird poop, as the birds have claimed it as their restroom. She collects the poop, mixes it with plant ash, and buries it. The manual indicates the process takes a year, which shocks her. Despite multiple failures over the years, Suika perseveres. Finally, her revival fluid succeeds, and she revives Senku. He notes it took her 7 years, and he's glad she succeeded. Senku is impressed by Suika's independence, recalling his own experience living alone. She shows him the nitric acid farm and shares her struggles in making the revival fluid, resulting in just 1 dose. Suika chose to revive Senku first, and he congratulates her on her efforts, affirming it was the right choice. Senku quickly produces nitric acid, achieving in 1 day what took Sukiya years. After preparing to make alcohol, which takes 2 weeks to ferment, he creates 16 doses of revival fluid in just 6 days. Suika then chooses to revive Kohaku, who is surprised to see how much Suika has grown. Kohaku hugs her, bringing Suika to tears of joy, and they begin reviving everyone one by one. Kaseki is revived and feels energetic, since petrification heals all damage. He suggests being petrified and revived occasionally. Chrome thinks it's a good idea. Meanwhile, Senku revives Tsukasa, who worries about Hyoga. When Hyoga is revived, everyone is surprisingly happy to find he's alive. At night, everyone celebrates their revival with a grand feast. Suika, who has always eaten alone, shares her happiness with Kohaku. Ryusui orders Francois to prepare a special dish for Suika, who enjoys coconut milk fruit soup and cries tears of joy, calling it the most delicious food she's ever had. The entire group happily enjoys the celebration together. Chrome asks Senku why his crack hasn't filled after being revived. Senku explains it's a permanent marking. Jen informs Senku that Tsukasa has gone to the water wheel alone, prompting Senku to speak with him. While Jen performs a magic trick to entertain others, Chrome steps outside and sees Senku and Tsukasa. Tsukasa mentions he believed Hyoga had died, but he survived due to petrification. Senku suspects that petrification and revival could potentially bring the dead back to life. Tsukasa suggests this implies humans have achieved eternal life. Chrome, excited by the idea that the petrification device could save Kaseki, questions why man's motives for turning everyone to stone if he's a good guy. They decide to ask why man, who lives on the moon. To get there, they need a spacecraft and Dr. Zeno's knowledge. Senku revives Dr. Zeno, but Chrome questions the wisdom of this. Tsukasa reassures him that Stanley and his team are locked up. Once revived, Dr. Zeno eagerly learns about the Medusa device. Chrome wants to reveal the secret of the petrification device, but Tsukasa intervenes, warning that knowing about immortality could lead to dangerous conflicts and potential dictatorship. He insists they keep the secret until they understand more about it. Senku gives Dr. Zeno an earpiece radio that has been silent since humanity was petrified. It broadcasts the petrification command until every human stops moving. This means why man will keep trying to petrify humanity as long as people are active. To prevent repeated petrification, they must reach the moon and confront Y-Man directly. The next morning, the Kingdom of Science sets a condition for Dr. Zeno to revive Stanley and his team. He must cooperate with Senku to build a spacecraft. Dr. Zeno agrees, bidding farewell to the petrified Stanley. He then dons his dress and collaborates with Senku on the spacecraft plan. Once complete, excitement fills the air as they realize the fate of 7.8 billion people rests in their hands. And that's the end of this season. If you like this video, give a like and don't forget to subscribe.